My name's Falco, and I've been a photographer now for about 30 years. I started my career in photojournalism. I was always very intrigued by what was going on in the world and realized that photography could give me a voice, could be a tool I could use to say things about things that were important to me, events, places, cultures. It was also a way for me to explore my world, which I love to do. It gave me an excuse to become a part of things and to look and observe and then bring back part of that experience to share with the viewer. I think when photographers are thinking about becoming journalists, they need to think about why they're here. I think you need this sense of passion. You need to have a concern for your fellow man, a general interest in the world, and a desire to be involved. There are things that a photographer has to know. One needs to master your craft. You need to know how to use your equipment that goes beyond just recording. You need to know what your equipment does, what equipment to use at what time, how to integrate the use of technology as we move into this digital world and we move into this computer-connected world. It's no longer just about mastering your lenses and your flashes, but also about what software do I use? Where do I use that software? How do I integrate different softwares? A photographer today has to have a broad understanding of the photographic elements of the trade, but also those of the computer and all the software related to the computer. Often I find that it's no longer just about the picture. We have to think about moving into multimedia and how we can integrate the technology that exists with still photography, with video and film, and how sometimes they're separate, but yet how sometimes they work extremely well together. I think all young photographers need to realize that every assignment has different needs, and one has to prepare differently depending on what you're doing and where you're going. And that is, I think, critical to make sure that everything you need comes with you at the time, but also to go beyond just what cameras I need to bring with me. More importantly, doing research, and particularly when you're working in either journalism or documentary photography. Often I will do a tremendous amount of research on my subjects, on the area I'm going to, the cultures involved. If I'm even doing a portrait where I'm photographing an individual, I'm trying to learn more about them before I arrive as to gain insights into the types of image I want to create. This is essential because the more I think you know, or the more understanding you have, even if it's at the back of your mind, will somehow lend its way into the photo to make it stronger. The next thing you do, or at least the next thing I do, is if I'm going on location, and particularly if I'm going on a location where I don't speak the language, or there is some element of danger, or I'm just not familiar with the terrain, I make a great effort to connect with individuals, organizations who I know are already there, who are already involved with the communities, who are already working in some capacity maybe on the issues that I'm going to be photographing. I think once you've done all that and you arrive, it's really all about the picture. It's about how do you take the best picture you can. And I mean, I think there's really basic elements that all great art, all great photography has, you know, a sense of design, sense of composition, an emotional essence that, you know, holds the viewer in the picture. And when I think of it, again, it's different situations, have different things one considers. If I'm working outdoors and I'm photographing landscapes, the time of day, the light, where is the light? When is it dropping? I've often come to a situation when I've arrived and I say, wow, the spot is great, but I have to come back at the latest part of the afternoon, very near evening, to take this picture. Or I have to come back in the early morning. Other times, it's really about the moment, being there at the moment. How do I time it so that, you know, that essence of life happens when I'm there and not 2 minutes before or 5 minutes later. Because to me, it's also about people pictures, and I love to photograph people and human condition and culture. You know, there are different ways to approach your subject also. I mean, I don't run forward like paparazzi, sticking my camera up the nose of an individual. It's about developing a mutual respect and rapport, I think, between yourself and your subject. This is when they open up. This is when they go back to being who they are, and then you enter their lives in a way that's about the real moment without the pretentiousness or the facades that are created when someone points a camera at you. I think photographers also, in addition to their craft, have to think that they also need to be business people. They need to think about marketing and promoting themselves in some way that people become aware of who they are and enable themselves to get work. I know for myself, I started with photojournalism, and I have a portfolio focusing on that editorial work. I have another portfolio of portraits, you know, and both editorial and corporate work. So from annual report to executive portraits to magazine editorial photography of a celebrity or a well-known business person. In addition to that, on the corporate side, there are things related to industry and technology, science and medicine. And being able to move across these in a fluid manner and show an art director or a photo editor that you have the skills and the ability is the thing that's going to allow your career to grow and for you to make a living. And I think in addition to your portfolios, you have to build a website. You have to have an online presence. The internet is here. It is almost dictating how we work, where we work, the kinds of work we do. You know, in the past, an agent was a big part of how a photographer built their career. And agents today can certainly play a very big role, depending on the kind of photography that you do. But things are changing, and particularly in the world of journalism, the agency no longer has the clout it did a decade ago. And I think the photographer has to rely more on his own ability to get his work seen by the art directors and photo editors than he ever did in the past. Where before your agent could set you up with a magazine, now I think the photographer also needs to take the initiative to create this network of clients that you have a personal relationship with, that you could let grow and develop as you in your career grow and develop. When I go out on assignment, generally I don't take a lot of equipment. I mean, if I'm shooting corporate, it's a different thing. I'm bringing strobes and lights and gear and a whole arsenal of studio equipment. But on a documentary assignment, it's really two bodies, the lenses that you see here, and even that, I really only work with these two. I like to get close. I prefer to work with wide angles. I use flash often because I like to bounce in very difficult lighting situations, and of course the computer. I always bring my laptop. The ability to begin my editing process right there on the scene, I think, really helps me build the essay. It makes the story easier for me because I can see immediately where I'm going with the story, what I have on film already, so to speak, and where I need to go. The photograph has a power, it has a life beyond the photographer to me. And when you think of an individual photograph, a work of art, it's about how that individual sees his world, perceives his world, and then through their artwork, through their photograph, brings back the essence of that moment so that the viewer can share in that experience. And it's that sharing, right, that connection between the photograph and the viewer that gives the photograph life beyond the photographer who took it.